building situation, as well as I bring in experts on topics that I'm not necessarily an expert at to help them on a once a month basis. And we have our Facebook group that is very, very engaged, and everybody is super supportive. It's kind of patterned after what I experienced with that group of female artists when I first started, because to me that was so helpful and such a game changer that I wanted to create that for other people.
Oh, sure. That's fantastic. With all of the projects that you're doing, because you're clearly a very busy person, how do you manage your time and focus, and how do you in your your academy, how do you encourage other people to manage their time and energy?
Well, I'm very big on goal setting and planning and organization. And so that is a major thing that I encourage people to do right when they join the academy. Figure out their 90-day goals, choose 5 90-day goals for different aspects of their business, and then go through and actually determine what action steps they need to take in order to achieve those goals, and then actually plan out those things. So I'm a big Asana user, and I use it to plan out pretty much every project that I do, make sure that I don't miss any important details or steps. And so every day when I get up, I'm not like, okay, what do I need to do today? Like, I just look at the list. Oh yeah, I need to do this for this project, this for this project. And it really helps me streamline and know that I'm not forgetting something, because there is a lot going on, and I've got several assistants that I'm working with. And that obviously helps me with my time, because they're doing, some of the things, but I just need to make sure that I don't lose track of things.
Right. I'm curious. I've never actually tried Asana before. What made you choose that over another app or?
When I first tried it, I didn't like it at all. That was about a year and a half ago, probably. They've really changed it, and I really like it now. They've kind of made it a combination between Asana and Trello, because you can use boards too if you want. I do use Trello for certain projects with certain assistants, but I like Asana for myself because I just like the way it's laid out. I'm list oriented, and I like to be able to check things off. So that's one thing I like about Asana, but it can be organized by projects, or, it can be organized just by, and the other thing that I like about it is it has you can do recurring tasks. And so I have, for example, I put out, a podcast every week. I do a Facebook Live every week. I have my music podcast that has 3 episodes every week. And so all of that is recurring. So I don't have to keep putting it in there every time. When I check it off for that week, then the next week it comes up.
Oh, that's great. I really like the idea of checking things off. So
it's very fun and like cathartic.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's a part of what I liked when I used to just handwrite a list, because I could just cross it off, and like the crossing off would always make me feel better or feel more like I was accomplishing something.
Right.
Yeah. So in your own on day to day now, are there certain routines or rituals that you've developed that have helped you become more organized and have a more productive day or week?
I think one of the things is that I get up early. I get up usually between 4 and 5 every morning, because I have kids, and between 7 and 8, I'm dealing with getting my daughter off to school. I have a homeschooling daughter as well, and so I have to fit those things into my day. And so I just like starting off the day with getting a bunch done, and then I can go into, okay, let's get this one off to school, and then I can get a little exercise in and then go back to work. But if I felt like if I didn't start work until 8, I don't know, I would be scattered, unless I want to get up and go straight to what I need to do and get some of the important things done, so I don't have to worry about them. Sure.
Have you always been an early riser, or is that just something you developed?
Yeah, I've always naturally been an early riser.
Okay.
But this is like I actually set an alarm. There's no way I would wake up on purpose at 4 or 4:30.
Sure.
I mean, my body's kind of adjusted to it, but still, like, I need that extra incentive of an alarm to actually get up.
Yeah. So with what you've done and transitioning from career in corporate versus starting your own business, and now that you work with a lot of musicians, I'm sure the idea of fear and things that are uncertainty come across your desk a lot. How do you approach your own fear and uncertainty, and how do you encourage the musicians that you work with to do that?
I think that in my experience, number one, if you don't have some fear, then you're not doing you're not doing something worth doing. Because for me, getting out of my comfort zone is when I've made the most progress in every aspect of my life. I wasn't a person that really wanted to have kids or loved kids, but I knew it was something that in the back of my mind I wanted to do. And, but I just had to jump in. I had no clue what I was doing, all that stuff, and it's kind of the same way with performing. The first time that I performed as a solo artist, because all that time period when I was trying to get involved in bands, I felt like it was more comfortable. And that was why I was trying to do that. Okay. But going out there as a solo artist, that was totally scary to me. But I think, number one, when you've got that fear and you've got a lot of fear and it's really gripping you, that's often the time that you're about to make a big breakthrough. And, I've seen this recently with one of the people that I mentor in the academy. She was about to do a really big concert that was kind of going to set the stage for future concerts. And she was very, 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 like, she couldn't sleep and, all that stuff. But of course it all went fine. And she loved it once she was like 2 seconds on the stage, so we build all this stuff up in our mind. And, if you can just get back to that place and remember what it was like once you were finally there, because I think we build it up so much. And, once you're there, it's been my experience in every big performance I've done. As soon as I'm actually standing there and I open my mouth and the first second that something comes up, then I'm totally, totally comfortable.
Yeah.
Once I start singing.
Oh, great. So it's more of like once you're in that moment then kind of thing. Is it so like rely on your training and rely on the fact that you're going to be doing well? So in that moment?
Yeah, don't have a short memory. Like, remember what happened last time that you had a massive fear and then you went out there and did it, and how you felt even while you were doing. Like, we all feel great when it's over, but most of the time, if we're doing something that's in our zone of genius, once we actually start doing it, we feel completely comfortable.
Okay.
It's just the idea of what might happen. We're always thinking about like, oh, well, what if this bad thing happens? And, what if, I don't know, we just build things up so much in our mind before it actually happens. So one thing that I do is I just try to stack things up so I don't have too much time to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I go from one thing to the next. And I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, how is this interview going to go or something? If I have time to think about it, I just go from one thing to the next. So I have no time to stew.
Yeah. I know. Yes. I know what you mean. So you don't let yourself get in your own head and
yes.
Self-sabotage that way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a number of musicians who do listen to this podcast. And if you were speaking, and actually you do, speaking to a musician just starting off who is, because there's so many ways to get overwhelmed, what advice would you give them, someone who's just starting off, of like one thing they should do that would really make a difference?
Yeah, I know what you're saying about getting overwhelmed, because I see that all the time. And that's kind of the reason I've created in the academy an order to things. Like, I created what I call the 5 stages of a music career growth, because I don't want people to compare themselves to other artists and think they have to be doing all the things, because there are so many things that really won't work for you in early stages that you see other artists doing, and you're not realizing, oh, well, they've built up to this point after 3 years of hard work. So, something that you can do right away, if you're not doing anything at all, is to me go out and play open mics and coffee shops, because you need to get comfortable on stage. You need to get really, really hone in on your stage show, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, how you interact with the audience, and just develop this really awesome product of you on stage, knowing exactly, what you like to say when you're up there, like no awkwardness between songs, just, having complete command of that stage while you're up there, even if it's an open mic, because you're not going to be able to get paid as a musician until you've developed that. And those type of situations can really give you so much confidence. And once you have that confidence and know that you have a great product, it's not nearly as hard to ask to get paid for it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was in a band in my late high school days, and we were awful, honestly. And it's one of those things where in that moment you think, especially early on, just about how exciting it was incredibly exciting to be in that point, and I was the keyboardist and the bass player. But to think back and looking at it, it's just like we were boring to watch because we had really no showmanship, or we were convinced that if we played our own type of music, and not that everybody would just love it because our music was just brilliant, and for a 17-year-old in Indiana, that apparently was what our business practice was. And so yeah, it was like our band career didn't last very long, and we had a similar thing where we would just, eventually we got a little more comfortable on stage, but we never learned showmanship, and got, and having a thing where the audience actually was getting involved and enjoying the situation. We were always kind of a little bit awkward on stage. So I know now when I go to concerts and events, it's like one of the first things I can notice with the performers, like, do they feel comfortable? Do they, are they performing a show and getting the audience to warm up to what they're doing? Or are they just kind of like stiff and nervous? Because sitting there, I want them to succeed and I want them to do well, but you're like, oh, you're almost there. Just keep going.
I know. And, you think about it, like, you don't need to reproduce what it sounds like on your CD. Because if they want that, they could just put the CD in, right? Exactly. Or they could just pull up iTunes. You need to give them something different than that. And that does involve physicality. It involves banter, all those things.
Oh, yeah. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
I would say the best advice I've ever received is get a mentor. Find someone that's gone on the path that you are starting on and you want to go on, and they're further ahead than you are, and learn everything you can from them. Ask a million questions. Be your mentor's best student. Because what I see with my students, and I know I was like this when I was in my mentoring group, is the ones that really, really soak it all in and are the ones that ask the most questions at the group coaching calls, and the ones that take me up on my extra accountability mastermind option, and the ones that really dive into everything and go through all the training and then ask questions about it. Those are the ones that I'm seeing consistent progress with. So, you have that opportunity to learn from someone that's already doing what you want to do. Why wouldn't you want to take that? And why wouldn't you want to not waste time making the same mistakes that person might have made when they can tell you how to do it differently so you don't have to make them?
Right, exactly. It's so much easier to learn from someone else's mistakes than yourself. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bree, for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. If the listeners would like to get a hold of you and see and hear more about what you're working on, what is the best way they can do that?
Absolutely. So I would recommend going to my site. It's the Female Entrepreneur Musician. It's F as in female, E as in entrepreneur, musician.com, femmusician.com. And if you go to femmusician.com/income, you can grab my 19 proven sources of income that you probably haven't considered for your music career. And it works for people just starting out and people that are already performing as a musician.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll put that link in the show notes so they can click right through. That's great.
Cool. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, again, thank you again for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
You